Human family, thank you for tuning in. I'm Keenan White, and I'll be sharing stories, dialogues, and methodologies for leading a conscious, abundant life. To me, luminous is a word that connects us to our vital life force energy and soul essence. Your bioluminosity is a barometer for health, a gauge for abundance, true prosperity, and a luminous way of life. In this podcast, I hope you find a more effortless way of tuning into the wisdom of your body, soul, and spirit. We'll explore the many faces of medicine, creativity, and self-mastery as it evolves and spans into esoteric and ancient wisdom and modern paradigm shifts in consciousness.
All right. So, once upon a time, back in 2017, I was going to speak at a conference in London alongside my good friend, Imran. And right before, this was 10 minutes before we went on, basically, there was a break in the conference. It was called the Positive and Mindful Leader Conference. And I think that's right. it's been a minute. And there was this break and everyone went to grab snacks and talk. And I was standing there with my friend and the organizer of the event. And it was bizarre, but all of a sudden it was as if I felt huge. It was like my energy expanded and I felt like huge. It's a really hard sensation to describe. I mean, whenever you're just trying to describe a spiritual experience, it can be, as we know, but it wasn't like I felt bigger than anyone in an ego superior sense, nothing like that. It was just like, I just felt huge. So I'm standing there with the organizer and my friend. I'm like, whoa, okay. But I also felt very confident and very calm, which normally in the past, if I was about to go speak in front of people, that would not be the case. Because in the past I've let fear get in the way, whatever, blah, 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 but not in this instance. So anyway, we go on and I do a great job. I sit down to answer questions and I'm more confident than normal. And it just seemed as though my spirit kind of came in and, it was like this embodiment. And what I made of that experience was that, what it felt like was there was a reason for that. If that activity, right, speaking at this conference, and by the way, it was on manifestation, and it was speaking to these like corporate people, right? So that in itself was a bit of a brave move to just go start talking about manifestation, but my spirit was like, we're doing this, let's do this. And I followed it and I let myself get way out of my comfort zone to do it. I had my like suit jacket on and everything. Okay, let's talk about this metaphysical concept, everyone. Ready? I mean, who knows? I think it went over some people's heads or they're like, this woman's woo-woo. It really didn't matter. It was really the fact that I, stepped up and I did it. And really what I've made of it is that it was such a fulfilling act for me and for my soul. It was true soul fulfillment. And that's why I just felt like, my soul was there. We were there together and like making it happen. So it was a really cool experience.
Nice. Yeah. And what you're talking to is fulfillment on a deeper level. And what I'd like to highlight in this episode is about kind of that contrast of like, what is the experience that gives us that? And then how do we know to discern where we may not be in alignment with an activity that is not very fulfilling,
right?
Actually, but we may try to continue to push through it or continue to do those things, whatever it is. And I mean, we were talking about values before we hit record here, and core value and motivational value are there's different ways of looking at values. And one of them I think is really about uncovering, how looking at these different areas of life and seeing in which ways you gravitate towards one or the other, and in what ways. And in that process of sort of like mapping out what it is that you actually value and clarifying that, you can really find genius. You can find fulfillment. And then there's the values that I think are just kind of more like, well, there's core value and then there's motivational value. And so like at the core, I know my core value is freedom. And I know that my motivational value is conscious relating. So when I'm in this space of conscious relating, like such as being on this podcast and inviting people onto a podcast, it feels so fulfilling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. Like if, here was our kind of question was, if you were given two options, and in my case, it would be, well, doing something like going surfing or doing a podcast. And there's a level of, fulfillment that I just get from doing this. That's like, it's a different thing. Or when I go surfing, I definitely feel fulfilled in that act, but it feels like more like my soul has been on this journey of doing intense physical things. I moved to Colorado to be close to the snow and snowboarding, and there's an immense amount of fulfillment that I get from that. And my soul's craving something else now. And because I fulfilled that, there's a new level of fulfillment, and it's always changing. And I kind of just see that as that's the ever changing kind of like dial of how we know what's actually fulfilling.
So just to be clear, earlier you were saying like now, if you were to choose surfing or podcast, there's this maybe deeper level of fulfillment right now on your soul's journey that you're feeling with the podcast, even though you love surfing. Is that clear, or is that correct?
Totally. Yeah. Because if I really valued surfing more than I do, basically moving here and hanging out with you guys, building community and doing all, creating relationships, building relationships, then I would be surfing.
Yeah, totally.
And freedom is at the core of that. Like I can be free either way, but what is really lighting me up? And I think about that idea of luminosity and bioluminescence. It's a barometer for our health and our alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're lit up and we're wow, I don't know what it is about that. I just feel like I'm lit up.
Yeah.
And that's alignment to me. And so I guess I just want to point to that for people listening. How do I know I'm in alignment? That's a way to know for sure. And yeah, I can go surfing and I can choose that, but is that really bringing me the deepest fulfillment?
Yeah.
And it's not that surfing has to go. It doesn't like I don't do that anymore, but it's just noticing the difference, I think, and then being able to prioritize the things you truly value, because that's really how fulfillment happens. To me, at least from what I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like leaning into what I feel like fulfillment is always kind of leading us into is more of the unknown. And we are always expanding. And that's what we are doing as beings. And that's what our universe is doing. We're always expanding. And there's something about going into the unknown that's exciting for our soul, our spirit. The human can get a little afraid, or the ego can get a little afraid of the unknown. Like, I'm just going to stay comfortable and I'm not going to get out of my comfort zone. But the soul's like, come on, like it's so much fun to explore these new areas and to become masterful in a new, area or, experience or whatever. And so, yes, what I'm finding for myself. So for you, Keenan, like in your example, maybe you've surfed for many, many years, and now this is like this new leading edge for you, this new creative leading edge of getting yourself out there on a podcast. And, maybe it has some to do with that exploring the unknown.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's more of a thrilling quality to it than surfing. which is weird. But maybe
But for someone else, it could be flipped.
totally.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been doing this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I want to point to is really more that you get on this path of fulfillment, it changes.
Yeah.
And so if you're not feeling lit up, you're probably ready to do something else. You're probably ready for a realignment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like we grow, and then once we grow, as souls or whatever, like then what's the newest, most exciting thing that's calling to us? We can't pretend like we're just a fixed object our whole lives. Like we'll have new desires, and new desires to explore new territories. And that just makes me think of like an example of mine, which was my first passion was fashion, and I followed that passion. I went to college for that, and I moved to New York, and I became a fashion designer. That was my dream from 12 years old, and there was alignment in that. And that's why I feel like a lot of really cool things manifested from that. But that was for a time. That was for a season of my soul's journey. And at some point, when I started to look around and really feel how I felt in that environment, it was as if I had outgrown the experience or the environment. And it wasn't to say that I was never meant to use my creativity again, or, I could have, well, all I know is my soul was calling me to explore something new. And that had to do with the world of personal growth and spiritual growth. And I was reading all these books while I was working in fashion, and I was starting to like realize, wow, this new topic really interests me, and I think I want to go into this as a career, and so I sort of started to lean into that. And there were times when I questioned. So anyway, long story short, I became a life coach. I took a year-long training, and I switched careers and became a life coach. And it was so fulfilling to support other people in manifesting their dream lives as well. And there were times though along my path that, I remember I had a psychologist friend be like, he was trying to, kind of understand my life. And he's like, you got off your path. You're an artist. Why did you go over here? You're not meant to be a life coach. Like you're an artist. And I was so confused. I was like, oh no, I messed up. Like, God, I totally got my path. I was so lost. But it was so funny because when I really went back to it, I was like, no, I was following my soul guidance. Like I didn't get off my path, but it was confusing for a while there. And then I had like Akashic record readings and different readings, and these people being like, yeah, I see you. You have your own studio and your own art studio, and this is where you're going. And I was like, that's exciting. It's exciting. And well, it wasn't exactly exciting. It was relieving to hear that. But it was also like, but something's missing here. All these years I've been in this like realm of spiritual growth and personal growth and spiritual growth. And now all of a sudden I'm being told, well, you're an artist. And yes, I could express all of that through art. Yes. But there was something that was missing in the message for what it was that I'm here to do, as far as fulfillment goes. And then I had this reading this year, and this reader said, okay, you have been an artist in all these past lives, and it's kind of a comfort zone for your soul. You signed up in this life experience to basically like have a platform and speak about spiritual growth and the ascension process. And everything you do creatively as an artist can be the backdrop for that, and it can support that. But this is the main thing you're here to do. And when she said that, it was just like, oh, like, yes, like that resonates. And finally, I kind of felt validated. I validated myself. I guess I needed someone outside of me to tell me what I already knew deep down, but it felt so good. And so I guess all of that being said, it's my assignment in this life. This is what's fulfilling to me, is to get on these podcasts and to talk about, spiritual growth and everything I do creatively to support that. Yes, also fulfilling, but the most fulfilling is really to create, this platform and to teach and lead. And yeah, well, I say share, not really teach, but to share, and to use my voice to talk about this. Cause I mean, I'm very passionate about ascension. Like this is very me. So anyway.
Love it. Yeah. So good. Yeah. Lots of things came up for me when I was hearing all that. And I mean, your journey into alignment. And I mean, what stood out to me was the importance of the emotional awareness, like really,
Yeah.
because even though you had these readers, you did have your own self-validation and I find it so interesting. I mean, I've gone through so much confusion in my world because I've given my power away to other people telling me what's good for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's somebody, I can't remember who quoted this, who created the quote, but it's that every problem we have is an authority problem. And I resonate with that because a lot of the problems I've had are truly when I give away my power, my authority to someone else.
Yeah.
To decide. And always the signs are there, It makes me think about the importance of feeling what comes up when somebody says something. Because for you, when the guy was like, well, you're an artist, you're off your path, you're immediately like, what?
Yeah.
And the energy was
I was kind of like, maybe he's right, unfortunately, because I doubted myself so much, but it didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right.
And there's a little like tinge, and it's very subtle, but there's a tinge of heaviness, like, ooh, But immediately when the other person gave you the reading that said, oh, well, you are an artist and you've had those lives and you're playing something different. It's just like, you kind of like get the energy goes up and you feel.
Oh, yes. It feels so good. Like you get me, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see me because that is what's true for me. I know that.
Yeah. It's really rad because I mean, yeah, I guess I want to highlight the beauty of permissioning oneself to go into that space. So much of the joy that I've experienced is related to that, when you're, and it's not even, it doesn't always look very, very pretty. When I was in the software world for a while and then decided to leave, it was just horrible in the picture of what was happening. I'm leaving my job and like, I'm not going to have this income and I'm going to go do this. And it just doesn't really, it's got not such a great picture. What are people going to think? And I spent almost 2 years in this field, but I'm sort of leaving early, and at the same time, my energy was leading me in that direction. And I'm so glad I didn't wait, and I'm also glad that I gave myself the journey to go there, because I can see the way that, all that abstract thinking in software and the problem solving and the way that you have no idea how to solve something. And so your whole expertise is around being able to be comfortable in the unknown, surrendering to, I have no idea what the answer is, and I'm going to find it. I know that I can find it. And there's an element of programming, that I think really ties well into the coaching world, et cetera. I guess what I'm wanting to say is that, I mean, it was all for a time,
right.
Cool. I'm getting this fulfillment. I got this nice salary. I'm getting to do all this creative thinking. I'm getting to work on a team. I'm getting to work on these big projects in a nice big building downtown and get to have that life of what it's like to live in the city and commute and do the whole thing and like be in the corporate world a little bit. And then it changed. And it's kind of just this. So I guess, how much permission do you give yourself to lean into that energy? Because to me, that's the fulfillment we can tap into at any moment, is just following that and being like, even though it was a mess, I was still following the energy of, oh, it feels so good to leave.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's like, and part of me is like, I feel like I'm doing something bad, but it feels good, but the bad is just like the judgments of what are people going to think, or blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I had a very similar experience when I was leaving the fashion industry. because, at the time I was working for Calvin Klein. And so like my ego identity was very wrapped up in that, and it was impressive to, people back home where I live from in Nebraska, and, oh, cool. You work at the headquarters of Calvin Klein. You're a fashion designer. Wow. So it was really hard to let that go, to surrender that. I created that lifestyle for me. I created that, identity, that role that I played. And then I just had to bow out. And yeah, it was difficult to let that go, but I knew I had to, because I was more committed to my soul's journey and the next level of fulfillment. I like the way you see that, Keenan, or talk about that deeper level of fulfillment, that next thing that was coming. It was more important to me. At least I was able to discern that,
And at the end of life, when you look back and retrospect, like what matters, I think I'll be a lot happier when I like leave and look back and see that I took some risks or was
Right.
courageous to follow the energy and follow,
Yes.
as opposed to kind of holding on and wanting to kind of control. And we just have so much abundance and prosperity available to us. And the pathway through, in my eyes, is that combination of purpose and an open heart, where you just follow the energy of where your heart's leading you, and give the authority of the mind over to the authority of the heart.
Yeah.
And you find purpose in that, because what you love is your purpose.
Yeah.
In a way, because it's what's lighting you up. It is you. It brings you into this just visceral, blissful present moment. And it's orgasmic in a large way. And that value that we place, to me, that's self-value, like saying yes to the things that light me up and I value, and noticing the things that I don't value as much. And it's not to say no to those things, right? Like I still want to go surfing and I would choose that. I just might not be as fulfilled if I lived in a place that had surfing, but not necessarily the community that I wanted to be in.
Yeah.
So if I can prioritize the things that I really value the most, I'm going to have more fulfillment. I just know that that's kind of the equation, and it's going to look different for everyone, but in terms of what those values are. But I think getting some clarity around those values is really important. Like, what is it that you really value? Are you clear on that? Do you know what that is? And if you do, great. Like, what's at the top, and how do you prioritize more of that? And then if you don't, then discover. And there's discovery processes to go through around, finding out what that is and then extrapolating on it. And it's so fun because you can go through this journey of mapping out what you love and following it. And then noting that the thing you value now at the top it may not be the thing that you always value. And the reason it's probably at the top is because it's a void.
Totally. You're desiring more of that.
Yeah. I mean, the way I understand it is that our voids drive those values. So if you're unclear on your values, what's the void? What is missing, or what do you perceive to be missing in your life that you want to fill? And right now, I mean, I've spent a great amount of time traveling and enjoying adventure and living this life of lots of travel and getting lots of interesting experiences. And now it's like, okay, cool. I want to have a thriving business. I want to have, and part of that's trusting that, okay, if I really value that, or if it's a void, and I'm going to create value in this place by just focusing my attention and energy there, it's going to grow. Totally.
It made me think of, fulfillment. So what I realized back in the day was, I had fulfillment in my creativity with the fashion, but I was also wanting to be of service to people. And it's not to say that in the clothing design, you can't be in for someone else, and their soul calling, absolutely yes. But for me, I was being called into a greater level of service for my assignment in this life. And that had to do with, moving into, like I said, life coaching and the spiritual growth industry or arena. And so any way we can, be of service to people is, for me, fulfillment. Yeah.
And maybe that's partial to living as an artist and being in this creative, fun space. And then there's a little bit of a void of like maybe sharing that. I mean, I'm semi projecting, but like, I'm curious, do you resonate with that maybe it's like, okay, like part of the reason I want to be in service is because I've had a lot of fun in this creative space, and now I want to share what it's like to offer like ways to be in that for other people because of how fulfilling that is.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess I'm thinking about the importance of fulfillment when we follow something and then we actually have a void, right? And that's the beginning. And it's like, what's it like to fill that? Like be an artist and be in my studio with all the colors and have fun. And then you do that. And then from that place of fulfillment, you're already sort of spilling over into, now what's next? What's my new void? And how do I, just follow that and create another level of fulfillment?
Yeah.
And just keep filling up in that way. I guess I'm seeing the connection of that, of service. I feel a similar sense, like feeling, I spent a lot of time in my own personal space developing body awareness and practicing yoga. And I chose me. I chose that. I chose what I wanted, and I wasn't in service. I was really, in some ways, attempting to be in service to something higher. Like, really, what is yoga? What is this path of, entering into the body with awareness and noticing the story and repatterning and creating something totally new, going through this process of non-attachment and realizing more of who I am beyond my personal ego. And I found myself in a lot of ecstasy, like a lot of bliss. And really, in yogic practice, the natural state is ananda, it's bliss. And so part of the yogic journey is really returning to that and working through the samskaras, the impressions from our journey of lifetimes that we've carried. Could be trauma, could be whatever wants to integrate. And then sort of like doing this demolition job. It's not as much learning, but it's sort of like this unlearning process and emptying one's container so much so that you feel the fullness of what fills in. So there's that kind of dance even there of emptying and filling up. And I think that could be tied into this picture of fulfillment, where if we're not fulfilled, we may not look for something to fill us up, but rather what needs to empty first, so that we feel the spaciousness or enough spaciousness to then make a choice from more clarity of what we actually, what's really calling us, before just kind of jumping in. Well, I think it's this, I'm going to try that out and do that. And then kind of be feeling a bunch of different juices, like, well, let's just put some orange juice in the lemonade, and now I'll add cranberry and some other stuff. And it's like, it's getting kind of weird here. Like, maybe we just empty the thing and try a different juice and get to experience what this other fruit is all about.
Totally. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. And there is a way to, weave our passions together as well. So I guess I'm looking at it. So what I hear you saying, Keenan, it seems like you're saying like just starting fresh instead of trying to put everything together, like all of your, are you talking about passions?
Yeah. Yeah, about fulfillment. I mean, I just got this idea of
Yeah.
fulfillment in my mind, and I'm kind of just
Okay.
riffing on it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, passion. I mean, I see passion is related to value, and some people might say, well, don't follow your passion into your work. And I see the wisdom in that in a certain sense, where if you just do your passion and then you're trying to survive,
Trying to
then
make it
your
make money.
passion becomes a burden.
Yeah, it can.
It can.
Yeah.
And when you infuse your life, I think, with more of your passion, and it becomes that thing that supports you, then like, what's better than that? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But not a requirement,
Not a
I have plenty
requirement.
of clients who they have the full-time job and they do their passions and their service work on the side, and that's fulfilling. So there's so many ways to do this. But yeah.
I appreciate that. No
So
right
many
way.
ways. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I wonder, do you have something?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, in your original story, what was it about that experience? Was it a moment in your career when you gave that talk and you had this big energy come through? Was it a pivotal moment in your career where something changed?
I
What was
wanted
that for
to say
you?
yes, but what happened is so interesting. I flew home. How did that go? I flew home, maybe a couple months later, and my mom died in my arms. And so it was a pivotal part of my career. And that was a whole other thing that happened in my life, that then I had to deal with that. And that was hard. So, nothing went wrong. But life happens. And then, yeah, so that's been what, like almost 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years. And I think what I'm coming to find is, I've had this vision of what I would like my career to look like. Writing these books and getting on stages and making this big impact. But even this summer, working with cannabis on one, I call them journeys, because every time I smoke cannabis, it's a full-on journey, learning so much. But what I was being shown is the impact that you make. You're thinking about it as like, you haven't impacted enough people, you haven't been on the stages, you haven't had enough clients, whatever, never enough, right? And so letting go of that ego perspective, and really what I was being shown is, you make just as big of an impact with one person. It's really the quality of the energy that you're bringing that matters. And it was kind of how my higher self was kind of helping me reframe my level of impact, which I would say is like fulfillment. And just really coming back into my heart and realizing, okay, like, you are enough. And when you show up in full presence with an open heart, and you beam that unconditional love and compassion and all the things that we know make up a high vibration and help us to express our higher self version, when you're doing that, even with just one person, it's the same as with a million people in a room. And it's been hard for me to wrap my head around that, right? But that's, you're not meant to. It's because it's this higher understanding, but really it's because we're all connected and we're all one. So it really has helped me to let myself off the hook, and be like, just Danielle, just keep showing up in the purity of, your energy and your truth, moment by moment, with just even the one person in the room, and that's enough. Or just you. I mean, drop the mic. I mean, it's like, yeah, I still,
Well
it's hard
said.
for me to even still believe it, but that's the message I received this summer.
I think it's really beautiful because it points to the importance of being with what's presently calling. You know, just coming back to the surfing example and the podcasting and building business, I don't think that I would be as motivated to be here doing this if I didn't go surfing for 2 months, about 2 months in Costa Rica. I really took this sabbatical to be down there and be in the water. And I needed that. I needed a level of just being immersed. And that's why I've connected to that sport or occupation so much, because it's just this kind of pure immersion into the wild and watching birds go by and everything's slowed down and you can hear the waves crashing and birds flying by. And well, I almost got in a fight with a few people just the way it goes out there. So it's not all complete serenity.
You're learning lessons on the way.
Yeah, totally. And it did something to my cells and my physiology, something I needed to experience and feel. And I think that's fulfillment, and yeah, I want to create a business, but I kind of have to go surfing right now. Am I just being that, escapist, procrastinator that's not leaning into the business and getting down to the grind?
Yeah. Am I being irresponsible?
I mean,
that's what we think, right?
Yep. And maybe on a level like, I could be a little bit on some level.
You have to check in. Where am I actually coming from? Maybe you are being that, but are you
but that's a lot of judgment also. And because I gave that to myself, I feel like I can relax on a whole different level. It was a deep level of fulfillment that I got to experience that then it's given me a lot more permission to be present here now. I'm not sure where I would be if I was here and didn't do that, but I might not be as present.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's different parts of us that become nourished by us leaning into things we love. So, I mean, I feel the same way about my art, so I get cranky if I let years go by without really doing any art and creative expression in that form. And then I started to kind of feel dried up. And I mean, actually, I'm still coming out of that and back into my creative expression. But when I do my art, whether it's on Illustrator and it's a collage or, doodling or sewing or whatever it is, I kind of feel dried up and cranky and not full of that flow of energy and passion. When I'm only focused on business or, my coaching clients or this one thing, what I'm finding is and what I'm remembering is I'm multidimensional. We each are multidimensional and we have many gifts and talents and passions. And so learning to flow within those passions from moment to moment and following your highest excitement and learning how to weave it all together. I feel like that's mastery.
Yeah, identity really stands out, to me, and trust. And I guess I'll speak to trust first. Even when I chose to go spend some time in the water, when I did that each day, I would go back to my work with a whole nother energy. And it allowed me to ground into creating a business model and working on my website and just getting a lot of the energy moving in the direction that I wanted also. And that was a little unexpected. I knew I would work on those things, but I feel like just allowing myself to have that to receive what I need and what I love, then things sort of fell in place. But identity is another piece that I think is important in the transformative process, that I could identify with the judgment. like I'm a procrastinator, I'm not responsible,
Mm.
and create my identity around that.
Mm.
And how much is that going to serve me around my business or me relaxing and being in the water?
Mm.
And yet my identity that I'm carrying into this moment from my past experiences may have tendencies such as that, right? So creating this life that we want, to me, seems like this process in which we form a new identity. We begin to identify or bring our awareness into something in a creative way, where we use our imagination to dream up what it is that we're creating and what it is that we want to be and become. And that imagination is, in yogic terms, they say power is God and God is imagination.
Mm.
And there's various different things that are written all over the place like that I'm like, kind of like, okay, well, that's one perspective in this yogic world or whatever. No one really stuck with me because, and I wasn't sure at the time when I felt it. I was like, imagination. And you can just feel into the creativity surrounding that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
You dream up anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything's possible. If you look at Disney's story, what he created, I mean, granted, what it's become now maybe is a little, like there's questionable elements to it, but but it all started with the mouse and this dream of bringing entertainment to people. And it just takes one step of being with a possibility and getting to dream it up. I think that's something that I've enjoyed a lot with living with you is, and Kyle and some other people here, that we're allowing a lot of that white space. Great, we have all these things that we would love to do. Let's sit in silence, and then get into alignment, and that feels really important for fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, because that white space, that blank space, that canvas that we give to ourselves, it's we're like, I think we said this in the beginning too. It's like we're always constantly we're growing, and so check back in, like, is this still in alignment? Like back in the day, dark ages, back in like what, our parents' generation, that you would sign up for a career and do that career for your whole life. But look at the generations now, the younger generations, there's no way they're going to stay in one career, because, and I don't see that as not being committed or responsible. I see that as the fact that we are here to explore life and all the different offerings and explore ourselves and express our multidimensionality. So that's healthy.
Spoken like a true millennial.
And totally, me too, I know,
but I think if you want to understand us, that's I think where we're at. I mean, I feel like that's largely what our generation has been doing is, hey, you guys aren't that fulfilled. Okay, maybe you've had the same career and that's been the advice, but that doesn't seem to make sense given like how things feel. They don't, and I think there's a lot of baby boomers who have been fulfilled greatly. And it's a different generation, different times, level of fulfillment, different picture.
I mean, it could have been for them, but I don't feel for our generations it would be. I feel like, we're going to most of us are going to have that calling to explore more, in our careers or whatever in our lifetime. I feel like I feel like I've lived many lives within this one life. That's fulfilling, allow you to explore to different careers, to lives, and as you might say, that feels awesome, and I'll have older people be like, wow, like good for you for traveling, and this young. And I'm like, yeah, like totally.